think of. Okay, good evening, parents. I love being at schools because I feel so. Can I get another good evening? Good evening. You know, I can't thank you guys enough for coming out tonight to learn more about the candidates, but I also want to take a minute to welcome our candidates to our campus. Welcome to KIPP Explorer Academy and KIPP Intrepid Preparatory School. We have students from pre-K 3 through 3rd grade, and we also have 5th through 8th grade students on our campus. So we welcome you to KIPP and to KIPP Houston Public Schools. And I want to thank you guys for taking the time tonight. I know that there are many events for you tonight, and there's a lot going on. So quite a few of you have noted that you're here to really participate and engage in the conversation, but you do have other things going on tonight. So if at any point you feel that you do need to slip out, we recognize that, and the election day is Saturday, and we're ready to get out there and vote. So we also realize that you've got a lot of people to connect with and meet with tonight too. So a very quick reminder, I'll kind of lay out the guidelines for you guys. We'll start with a 2-minute introduction from each candidate, beginning with this front seat over here and working our way down. We'll then, on the next round, rotate to the second seat over here, and then we'll do a 1-minute question. So we'll ask one question, everybody will have a chance to answer. Dorothy, you'll, of course, close out that question. And we'll continue that way down the line for about 5 questions, and then we'll have 1.5 minutes for close. My beautiful Miss Adriana Fernandez is standing right here in the middle. She has a yellow card for you guys. That's a 15-second warning. She has a red card, which means, I'm sorry, you're out of time. And she, you know, in true KIPP fashion, we actually believe that if you believe, you hear the bells, and that's a whole other story for another day. So she actually has a bell. So she'll just let you verbally know, or orally know, that you're out of time. Okay? So 2 minutes on the opening, 1 minute on the questions, 1.5 on the close. And just for a reminder for my parents, Election Day is Saturday if you haven't already early voted. I know many of you are here being informed, so you're up ready to get out there Saturday. You can vote from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and you can vote in your home precincts. And if you need that information, it's on harriscountyvotes.org. So with no further ado, Dorothy, I'll let you kind of take it from here and kick off with your introduction.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dorothy Olmos. I'm a native Houstonian here from the East End. I live just a couple of blocks from here in Idlewood, and I'm here to serve you. I'm a school teacher, former school teacher, a mother of 4, a grandmother of 9, and very proud of it. And I want to say to you that as an educator, I want to embrace this school because, first of all, I used to teach at KIPP Academy back in the days when they first got started out in southwest part of town. I was the teacher who actually trained the students to audition for HSPVA. I'm a drama major and I'm also a science major. So I have 2 degrees, and with that note, it'll take me a little bit further with my capacity to be your senator. However, I've also worked very diligently on the board at Gulf Coast Community Service Association for 5 years with the Head Start program, and we work diligently to keep those pre-K programs going on in the East End and within the Senatorial District 6. Again, I'm in favor of the budget surplus that we have these days in Austin, and I'm looking forward to moving some of those monies to better the education of our kids. That's one thing I want to do once I'm there. The other thing is I want to be able to have the charter schools partner with businesses so that the businesses can have the opportunity to give scholarships for those students, and the poorest parents have the opportunity to go ahead and choose the schools of their choice. That's school choice, whether it's private school, Catholic school, Lutheran school, etc. Charter schools is the way to go because bottom line, I used to also teach at George I. Sanchez High School, and I was a high school teacher teaching computer science and also theater arts. So I want to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not a stranger. I'm here for you. I'm a mother, grandmother, and I know the needs of the community because I have lived here all my life. I know what Senatorial District needs. We've had a shadow of darkness for too long, and I'm giving you that light. Thank you so much. God bless.
My name is Maria Selva. I grew up in Houston in the East End. I went to Boston High School, public schools, and I went to Rice University. Now, at that time, it was rather unusual for somebody from a public school neighborhoods that are not wealthy should not be able to go to elite universities. Now, at that time, there were not charter schools, okay? So it was just my parents encouraging me along. Now, since then, since graduating from college, I have been working in nonprofit organizations seeking to better people's lives. And I was a community organizer in District 6, and I was shocked at the state of schools. I was shocked that in elementary schools, you can have a child be taken to the principal's office and an HPD officer would be present. And I was shocked that youthful behavior, things that used to be school incidents were criminalized and students had to go to court. And if you had something in your court, you can then be denied entrance into university or be denied scholarships. This is a system that is just so out of whack that you just shake your head. You just don't know what has become of this. Now, because I saw the state of schools, I was willing, in trying to figure out what to do, I was willing to consider all options. And I have said previously that any option was on the table. However, since that time, it has been brought to my attention that Rick Perry and Republicans in Texas are denying education funds to the point that is sure to sink public education and therefore make vouchers more appealing because the education system has been sunk. Now, since that time, I've withdrawn my support for vouchers because democracy is not a business. You should educate. We have a social contract with our government, and education is one of the things that it needs to provide, and provide it well. It is the foundation of our society. I guess my time's up. Thank you.
It's easy to speak to Kip. I've been a Kip advocate for years, so I feel like I'm at home. And I can go on telling you more about myself, but let's face it, that's what social media is for. You can always visit me on Facebook and the websites, right? So let me get right to the point. Several years ago, a couple of teachers who were fed up with the way public school systems were working decided they would take a leap of faith and do something a little different. Got to the point where teachers were actually teaching to a test, and these particular men got tired of it. So what they did was they started a program. They came up with an idea. They stepped outside the box and decided they would call an academy called KIP. And look where we are today. This is two men saying, I'm going to step out on faith and do something different. That's what this election is about. 27,000 dropouts in SD6, 27,000 less than a decade. 60% dropout rate. 60% dropout rate in SD6 currently. That's what we're facing. We have individuals who want you to pour more money into public schooling. Let me make sure we remember this. Even public schools, even charter schools are public schools. It's just that the charter schools are actually doing better. And that doesn't sit well with people who are advocating for you to continue to bring your students to ISDs that are failing. And they don't want you to start introducing more charter schools. Because then they will have to start competing. And when the poorest of us have the opportunity to take our kids to a charter school, and we can actually do better than those that are in the ISDs, all of a sudden the ISDs have to start performing correctly. Let's face it, right now we have parents who are lying on applications so that their kids can go to better service schools. Lying, criminalizing themselves, saying that they're going to their grandmothers or their aunties as their residents, knowing full well that it isn't. But they will do anything to make sure their kid gets a proper education. That's what KIP is about. It's about stepping outside the box and doing something totally different. And this time, we have an opportunity to send a senator who advocates that. I want to make sure that I'm there for you. I guarantee you I will not bend. Thank you so much.
Good evening. Buenas noches. Yo soy Carol Alvarado, soy representante estatal. Yo nací y crecí aquí en el barrio de East End y todavía vivo aquí en el East End. I'm Carol Alvarado, your state representative, and I grew up in the East End. I still live in the East End. I'm a proud product of HISD. I graduated from Milby High School. I went to Deedy Middle School and John R. Harris. And I see our former board member here, Esther Gambos, longtime friend and extended family member. We want to recognize her for her work on the HISD school board. I have served 2 sessions in the state legislature, and it's devastating what we've seen. We've seen cut after cut in the last session to education. $5.4 billion that was cut from our public education that was led by Rick Perry and others in the leadership in this state. And I think we need to go back to Austin and make sure that we put those monies back that were taken out last session. And programs like all-day pre-K were cut. I have spent the last year going to every school in the district, and I've been here. I've come out to KIPP on numerous times for different events to tour the facilities, and you are doing great things here. But we have to make sure that education in the whole session, that it dominates what we are talking about, and that we look for surplus money, because we do have a little bit of extra money. We have money in our rainy day account, and last session, you know, we shortchanged the schools, not just the $5.4 billion, but there's a formula that has to be followed to fund our public education system, and it was short by $4 billion. I think we can do better, and I'm ready to go to Austin and work for you to make sure that education is our #1 priority.
Thank you for coming tonight and giving us an opportunity to speak to you. I appreciate that very much, and I applaud each and every one of you for wanting to be part of the political process and also wanting to know about the current issues that are affecting you today and that will affect us tomorrow and your kids. We have some serious issues today, folks, that need to be fixed. One of them is education. As you well know, Governor Perry slashed $5.3 billion from education funds. Dollars that right now we could be using for our kids, whether it's in public schools or charter schools. We need those funds. We need programs for our kids. For example, prevention, dropout prevention programs, early childhood development programs. How about salaries for our teachers? Increasing the salaries for our teachers. You know, I would not be here today if it wasn't for my teachers. I came out from the barrio in San Antonio, from the deep west side, and there was no future for me. It was my teachers that brought me on, and I graduated from high school, and eventually from St. Mary's University, and I became a successful businessman. Now it's my turn to give back to the community. And education is very, very important to me. My wife and I have 4 kids. 3 of them have already graduated from university. She has just recently retired after 30 years from HIC. And I continue, and she continues to be strong proponents of education. I have 32 years of federal and city government experience, private industry, and international experience in contract management, finance, budgeting, and in negotiations. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Buenas tardes. First and foremost, my name is Joaquin Martinez, and I want to say thank you to everybody that is here. I want to say thank you for your participation, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to really share what's really going on in our community. I'm a father of a 6-year-old. He attends Ripley House Charter School. I worked for neighborhood centers for over 10 years. Prior to that, I worked for a city council member for 3 years. And that's where I realized in politics, that's where the resources are in order to really help out our community. For me, it's about changing them. It's about changing what's going on, and not just at Austin, but what's going on in our community. Right now, we have an opportunity to really reframe the conversations that are happening in Austin, conversations that are happening here within this election. I have 4 charter schools, first and foremost. My son attends a charter school. But it's about real choice. It's about real choice. We want to make sure that at the root issue of everything, when you come out to Senate District 6, realize it being the lowest voter turnout, lowest registered voters, what kind of change can we really come to bring about in Austin? We could all stay here and say, these are the bills that we're going to pass. But for so many years, we've been seeing the same thing. The same thing. Being the youngest candidate up here, being the one that was told, this is not your time, you have an uphill battle, I'm here to change that. And I'm here to change it because I want us to make sure that my son and his community is successful. It's time to make sure that we rewrite what that story is. we rewrite what we're trying to do within public education. Yes, we need to restore those funds. I went to Gage, Jackson, and Austin, and there are good schools. But what can we do to make sure that that system is really being checked and also being changed? We need to make sure that every kid in our community is successful. For me, my son, I know he's going to be successful. But when he comes around in his community and his community is not successful, what am I really doing? It's about building communities from the ground up. That's the leader that I'm going to be for you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your perspective and your experiences. And parents, thank you for warmly welcoming everyone. We're going to get it moving at a pretty rapid pace. So you can hold your applause until the very end, or you can just hold your applause, but we're going to get it moving real quick. So I'll start with the first question for Ms. Selma. What are your educational priorities in the legislative session? If elected, what exactly do you intend to improve public education in District 6?
First of all, you know that there was I forget about microphones, we've had other debates without them. You know that in the previous session, they had an austerity mentality in which they decided to cut the budget, and then there was a surplus. They do not need to, obviously they overreacted. They should not have cut education. Now another thing is, when you decide to balance the budget, on whose back do you do it? Education is the foundation of our society. It brings benefits not just to the children being educated, but to all society. It brings forth leaders, people who can develop not just the economy, but civic organizations and help each other and benefit the entire community. So obviously we need to restore the funds that were cut. We need to tap into the rainy day funds whenever it's necessary. And a few years back, I don't know if you remember, Perry rejected money, federal money, because it was coming from Obama. Obviously we cannot afford to do that. That was a political temper tantrum. We need to keep the funds.
This is good because I love talking to parents. Here's the deal. We have 60% of our general revenue that was going toward education, but the education system was failing us. So we cut last year. Because we cut last year, we came out with a surplus. Parents did it all the time. You may cut cable because you want to save, right? Because cable was throwing you off. All of a sudden, next year, you find you have a lot more money to spend. Candidates on here that's running this election will have you believe that you just spend that saved money. I'm telling you no. Here's what they decided to do. They have a surplus now, and instead of pouring more money into education, what they decided is to pour more money into charter schools. But public education and public schools are totally different. Remember that. Totally different. So now we're advocating more charter schools. And why? Because it creates competitiveness between the schools. But public schools don't necessarily want that, even though charter schools do. So here we have an opportunity for charter schools to be funded by businesses. All of a sudden, businesses are engaged in the community, which is what the community has been wanting for years. But the candidates will have you believe that the answer is for you to pour more money into a failing program. Where I'm from, that's called insanity.
I think the first priority is to lead the effort to help bring back the funds that were cut last session. Bring back the $5.4 billion. Make sure that we restore the cuts that were made to the teacher merit pay, because our teachers are not paid what they should be. And also make sure that we fund all-day pre-K. And I can tell you a little bit about the bills that I have filed already. You know, in grades 1 through 4, the ratio, student-teacher ratio, is 22 to 1. But because of the cuts that were made, we've seen overcrowding in many of our classrooms. I have a bill that is extending that to cover the elementary school, so it takes it to the 5th grade. And now the school districts, because of the overcrowding, they've had to ask for waivers to go over the 22 to 1 ratio, but they don't have to report exactly how many students are in the classroom, so we can't really tell how severe the cuts are. So my bill says that school districts that apply for a waiver then have to tell exactly how many students are in there. So I think, again, the most important thing is to restore those cuts. Thank you.
One of my priorities would be education, that's for sure. Strong proponent when it comes to education. The issues, the problems that we have today in education didn't become just reality this year or last year. They've been around for a while. Why our state representatives or state senator hasn't done as much as they should have done is the question. All right? Yes, definitely, we need programs. We need child care, early childhood development programs. We need dropout prevention programs. We need to increase teacher salaries. Let's not forget the teachers. We also need to fund and support charter schools. Very, very important. I've always been a strong proponent that parents have an obligation and the right to select, to choose the education they want for their children. And I support that. Thank you very much.
So when we look at the budget, you know, definitely there's been a cut. It's a cut that needs to be restored. Early childhood is important. So attended an early head start. First grade reading at a third grade level. That's the kind of education that we need to make sure that we're providing for our kids. You can bring in all these, restore these funds, but if you don't change what's going on again within our system, it's not going to work. We've been doing this for years and years and years, so we need to make sure, at the root of everything, is to make sure that you go and vote, you go and challenge those elected officials, and make sure that you are getting the responses that you really need and want. For me, my biggest platform on this campaign is increasing that voter turnout. Increasing the knowledge of people for what's in every aspect of what's going on in this election. Because when we are able to build that kind of mobilization within our community, we can really make change. I can go and present these bills. Nothing can happen. Nothing would happen because we have 31, out of 31 senators, there's 19 of them that are Republicans. What's going to happen is that we need to make sure we mobilize each other, go and vote, and then we start seeing the change. Thank you.
Beginning with Mr. Gray. What are your thoughts on... Oh my goodness. I am sorry. Please accept my apology, Ms. Olmos.
I'm still the teacher, okay?
Jump right
Okay, what I would like to do, going to Austin, and y'all have my card. They're my little credentials on education, economic development, and law enforcement. Please read those. I can't reiterate them, but I want to let you know that Governor Perry did it for a reason. He made cutbacks because we all know in households we have to cut back when there's a lot of expense. And I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, when I was at the Head Start program with Gulf Coast Community Service Association, there was too much deficiency. The funds were being allocated stupidly, excuse my French, but those are the things. We need to be transparent. We need to have accountability with funds that are being given to us. And Governor Perry did the right thing. He cut back to generate revenue. We have a surplus now, and we're going to redirect that money, and I know the Republicans will do it because as your senator, I would be the 20th Republican there to help the endeavor and make it right for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Olmos. My apologies again.
That's okay.
Mr. Bray, kick us off. What are your thoughts on charter schools as an educational choice for families in District 6? And how do you think that districts and charters can work together to better serve students?
You couldn't ask the best person. I told you once before, I'm an advocate for charter schools, I'm an advocate for parents. So let's take an example. About 2 years ago, I helped and participated in a kickoff with a program called SKY. It was an incredible program because it was the first time ever an ISD combined with YES and KIPP, and they created an initiative that I had never saw before. An initiative to where you can have charter school ideologies, how they teach holistically, correct? And compare it and combine it with ISD functionality, meaning they can play games, they can have sports, they can have extracurriculars, things that some charter schools don't necessarily give. This is an amazing thing because if we start thinking outside the box, we would have never gotten there had KIPP not came aboard. Parents would not have a choice had KIPP not came aboard. Now all of a sudden, we have an opportunity to continue that type of mindset, and it's working. But there will always be individuals that want to impede on progress. Let's make sure we continue in this fashion, and we will see both ISDs and charter schools getting along perfectly.
I think the charter schools like KIPP are very much a part of the community and have done good jobs. I mean, that's why I've been here to tour the schools, to read to the kids, to interact with the parents and the teachers. And I think that we have to accept that. Now, I know in the past there have been some charter schools that have really given the charter school industry a bad name, but you do have good ones. And I think that having the charter schools is a part of the public education system, that it can be a positive thing. So although I am a product of Philby High School and the HISD school system, I do recognize the work that has been done here, and I think that the work that you are doing, the involvement in the community is also going a long way, because not only are you just here on campus, but I have seen how involved that the parents are within the East End community and the rest of the communities that you are present in. Thank you.
As I have mentioned many times in just the last 15, 20 minutes, I am a strong proponent when it comes to education. Strong supporter when it comes to charter schools. Charter schools have done very well. They present many, many benefits for our children, and I hope it just becomes even better and better in the future. So you will have a state senator that will support you, and also charter schools. Thank you very much.
You know, sometimes we forget that, KIPP isn't off of Lawndale. We have Cage, it's right off of Bernstein. We're all one community still. I have a nephew and niece that go to Natural. I'm sure a lot of you have other family members that go to these public schools as well, that are part of our community. We need to make sure that we start building communities within this core group. We need a challenge. I need to make sure that you understand that the challenge is on you as well. You need to make sure that you set that example and you find those other schools and those other parents that are wanting the same education. But I understand, KIPP has 800 waiting lists right now. 800 students on their waiting list. These kinds of things we need to make sure that we start changing. And I cannot stress this enough. I cannot stress this enough. The change comes when you get involved and take that extra step. You've done it already by putting your kids in school at KIPP. The next thing is to make sure now we take it to the community. Thank you.
I sure can. Just to repeat on the question, what are your thoughts on charter schools as an educational choice for families in District 6? And how do you think that districts and charters can work together to better serve students?
As a teacher with a charter school, I started when the George I. Sanchez High School was partnering with the HISD under HISD leadership. Okay, so this is something that I know that we can bridge together. Charter schools have those feeder pattern programs that sometimes the ISDs do not have. I do believe that we can partner in some capacity. If you look at my card, there's vocational and educational training that needs to come back. We need to go back to the basics, and some of those feeder pattern programs will help with the ideology of educating the parents as well, giving the parents the opportunity to work towards assimilating to the American way, those parents who want to learn English, and we can give those partnerships with HISD and also with the charter schools. I'm very proud to say that the charter schools, when I started with KIPP a long time ago, I was just a contract instructor, but at the same time, I helped build those bridges. I helped build the community in that capacity where students were working with parents and parents were working with the teachers.
Thank you, Ms. Olmos.
Thank you.
As I said earlier, when I was a community organizer, I finished being a community organizer before I started running for this race. I was shocked at the state of public schools. Now, ideally, you would fix public schools so well that there wouldn't be a need for charter schools. However, you're not going to wait. You should not have to wait. You need to have an option now. As I said before, the state of public schools was just so scary and so shocking to me that it's an absolute necessity to have charter schools. Now, I am not for vouchers, and in this question that we're talking about charter schools versus public schools, you need to ask both of my Republican co-candidates here, because they've supported vouchers before. I don't believe that you should take money out of the public education realm, which includes charters and public schools. I think it needs to stay between charter schools and public schools. Thank you.
Beginning with Ms. Alvarado, what do you believe is the greatest challenge for charters in the state of Texas? And how do you propose to rectify this? The greatest challenge for charter schools in the state of Texas. And how do you propose to rectify that?
Well, it seems like, from what I've seen going to different schools, is the funding issues for capital improvements And I'm sure that that's something that we're going to be debating on. And I know that many administrators and parents want to see the state contribute to capital improvements and the infrastructure of the schools. And I am very much open to talking with parents and the charter schools about that. And of course, everything is going to be dependent on what our resources are. That's why I go back to my original argument of needing to restore the cuts to education and dipping a little bit more into the rainy day fund. You know, there is a bill right now that Senator Patrick has, and his answer is to have vouchers in Texas, and I'm adamantly opposed to vouchers in Texas. I think that we need to adequately fund the schools that we have now that receive funding from the state of Texas.
I think one of the priorities would be additional funding for charter schools. I think at the present time, charter schools need as much funding as possible. You need more programs. You need to expand the programs. You need to expand perhaps your classrooms. Maybe perhaps extend to other kids that perhaps want to come in the charter schools. At the present time, I understand charter schools are limited throughout the area. Perhaps opening more charter schools would be nice so that other kids from other areas can come and attend your schools. Of course, with that, parents will have more options. They will have a selection of schools where they can take the kids and they can get educated in the fields that they want to be educated in. Thank you very much.
I think the biggest challenge is how individuals have attached charter schools with vouchers. Again, we need to make sure that we reframe that conversation. The charter schools are not associated with vouchers. Vouchers are dollars that take from public schools to go to private schools. People have already made that choice. They have money to go ahead and send their kids to private schools. We need to make sure that we start separating that conversation. We need to make sure that charter schools, being public schools, are offered within our community. We need to make sure that we're not sending our kids out of our district, that we have those schools in our district and educating our kids. So the biggest challenge is to separate charter schools from voucher conversation and really start looking at what our families really want and need.
Charter enhancement is very dear to my heart. I want to see it. When I ran for the State Board of Education back in November, I received 80,000 votes, and that's because we have really pushed, and I feel very strong about at the State Board of Education level, they have an education fund that's supposed to be funded for certain courses, books, textbooks, and materials. However, charter enhancement would be something that I would look forward to because the State Board of Education has the right to choose to enlarge that or reduce it. So as your advocate, as your senator, I would be very, very in tune to enhance the charter schools because, first of all, y'all have a feeder pattern program where you take the kids all the way up to college level and boarding schools. And that's what we got to see. We got to prepare the parents to be enforcing the education component with your children. That's what we're all about. And I do believe that the budgets that need to be brought back, we need to enhance the charter schools with those funds. Thank you.
What do you believe is the greatest challenge for charter schools in the state of Texas, and how do you propose to rectify this?
I'm afraid I'm going to have to echo some of my other candidates, that we do need to keep the money inside the public education realm, to exclude vouchers. And so right now, unfortunately, that is the trend in Texas. What is being proposed in the legislature right now, what's being advanced, it seems like the energy is in trying to privatize social goods, public goods, something that the government should be in charge of, not companies. If you think about vouchers, it brings in the private enterprise concept. And whenever you have a business, the end result that you're trying to get is more money rather than quality. And so we need to focus on the quality of the education and the care of the children, not on profit. So that is a critical conversation, to focus away from vouchers and back onto public education. Thank you.
I love forums because I can just get to the point, okay? Everyone up here said we should not have vouchers from companies with charter schools. One candidate talked about private enterprise interests. Another candidate talked about the greatest challenge was funding. Well, let's deal with it. The situation now is that we have charter schools. We want more charter schools. So how do you make that happen? Most individuals want to dip into the rainy day fund and all the other areas. So that's going to mean we spend more money. That's not the answer. The answer is this. You include a voucher into a program. All of a sudden, those individuals that were once corralled to a location like we have now, where you have to send your kids to that area, it opens up. So now the poorest of us are able to take advantage of a voucher system and send our kids anywhere we want that can give a great education to that child. Now, public education doesn't necessarily want that those advocates that do, but as a charter school advocate, I do want it. Here's the powerful part to that. If you have a voucher system, more charter schools will be created. Why? Because the 800 that want more charter schools will finally be able to get it because the ISDs will be overpacked.
Thank you. So our parents are wondering, we know that our values drive a lot of our school. So at Explorer, we believe in our bright values, right? Believe, reach, imagine, give, honor, and trust. And our kids do it every day. So we want to understand your values. And we think we can understand that by using, what do you think is the most important factor for a child to receive a quality education and to be successful in life? Mr. Reyes, we can start us off. Sure. What do you believe is the most important factor for a child to receive a quality education and be successful in life?
As all of us know, education comes from our parents, first of all, from the household. It's when we teach our kids values and principles that we live by every day. We, don't steal, respect your elders, do what you're supposed to be doing. So, from that point of view, one of the values that I would instill in education, always respect your teachers, always try to do your best, study, do your best, so that you will, at the end, be able to receive that education that you really need in order to be successful in life, go to school, go to college, and become what you want to be at the end. Very, very important. Thank you very much.
When it comes to values, being a single dad, I know parent involvement is the most important thing. But we can't forget also, one thing that my dad would always tell me, it takes a village to raise a child. The village is the teacher, the village is the community, the village is the parent. With those three components, we can work wonders. We can build communities. We can really challenge ourselves and our communities to be the best that they can be. For me, it's really important, parent involvement. All of you have done that already. And I've taken that step by putting your kids and choosing that you wanted them to become a kid. The next thing is trusting in those teachers, trusting in that administration to do their part as well. It takes a village. It takes a village to raise a child. That's important.
The environment in which the child is raised and taught matters greatly, and unfortunately I think it matters more than the education itself, because if you have a crime-ridden school, or you have bullying, or you have some other environment that's disruptive, then that interferes with the actual education. You can have a great teacher, but if you have a disruptive environment, you can't function. So that, a school should not have to deal with that, but the reality is it does. And so that is primary and should go first so that you can enable the teaching to have roots in the child's mind. Thank you.
Parents, I don't have to tell you this, the most important factor in education is opportunity. MLK walked so that minorities will have the opportunity to go to segregated schools. Remember that? We learned that at one point in history, if you were the wrong color, you could not go to a school that was given adequate education. Years now, we have an opportunity where every race is on the even field. And now we have programs that want you to corral your children to be forced to go to areas that don't perform. What we want to make sure we have happens is that we have an opportunity. If this side of the room has taken advantage of public education, this side of the room is taking advantage of charter schools, and all of a sudden you see a shift from here to here, then we have to open up an idea, think outside the box again and realize that maybe we're doing some things wrong on this side. More parents are going to this side, so we need to make sure that we are actually educating our children holistically. our kids a test and testing them straight out of school. We need to change the ideology. In order to do that, we need someone who's going to introduce a powerful platform. Thank you.
I think it starts with making sure that we adequately fund our public school system, that we have a good environment for our kids to learn in, that there's good buildings and good structures, good infrastructure for them to learn in, that we have parent involvement, that we have teachers that are paid well, and that we have a healthy environment for our kids. You know, if kids are not healthy, if they're not eating meals that are healthy, then they're not going to be as productive. And I think it's all of those components that make a good environment for a child to reach their full potential.
Thank you. And before the forum, we collected some information, some ideas and thoughts on questions from parents. So I have a question from a KIPP Explorer parent that was sent to me yesterday, I believe. If charter schools are making a difference in our children's education, yet we are not receiving the necessary funding, how do you see yourself remedying this? Sure. If charter schools are making a difference in our children's education, yet we are not receiving the necessary funding, how would you remedy this?
It comes down to funding, definitely. And for me, I do see charter schools, KIPP, yes, Ripley House. These are schools are, again, maybe the better for what our community needs. By remedying the funding, you definitely need to think outside of the box. Working for neighborhood centers, some of the things that we would do, we'd work with businesses. We work with businesses to see what they can do to support what's going on, to help leverage some of those resources. Sometimes these businesses around this neighborhood don't even know how to get involved. You have to have a new conversation. You have to have parents that are there having the conversation as well. That's how you remedy it. You remedy it by making sure that everybody in here is educated about the issues. Educated about what we need to do, what you need to tell those businesses in order to help fund what's going on in these schools.
Well, I am a community organizer. Obviously, you have right here the people necessary to go put pressure on the legislators at all levels to do what you want them to do. That is my answer. In any case of a public law of a legislature, is the community has an input. You have to realize that, because unfortunately, when I was a community organizer, a lot of people sort of gave up. They say, oh, we tried, we couldn't get anything, blah, blah, blah. Now, you already had enough initiative to bring your child to a charter school. You already have parent meetings. Obviously, if you want more money to go there, you need to get organized. And that is always the answer, to get your say-so into the legislature.
I think the parents have already gotten organized. We have 800 families right now waiting to get into KIPP. I think there's a gamut of individuals who are ready for a difference and ready for a change. In order to do that, I agree, we need to make sure we have funding. Here's an opportunity. You have businesses who are willing to invest in charter schools and vouchers. That actual bill is on the table, ready to be passed. If you want more charter schools, that can happen through a bill that's being passed. Keep in mind that for the past 8 years, for SD6, the sitting senator authored 0 bills and 0 were passed. That means that there is needs in this district that's gone unmet, even though we have parents who are asking for choice. In order to make sure that happens, we have to make sure that businesses can actually invest into the charter schools. It's not about dipping back into the rainy day fund or even a surplus. It's about thinking outside the box. And when you have businesses who raise their hand and says, we'll invest in that community, look what happens. What happens when Exxon invests in a KIPP chopper? That KIPP chopper basically go right into Exxon with a job. I don't think that's outside the box at all.
I think on the funding issues, of course, the funding formulas on how we fund our schools would have to be revisited, and that's, I think, where you as parents come into place. One thing I know about this school is that the parents are very well informed, you're very well organized, and you participate. And I think that's one way to approach it, to sit and talk with your legislators and talk to the community leaders. And yes, talk to the business sector, because the businesses are part of the community, and it is in their best interest to make sure that we have a talented and skilled workforce to take jobs in the industries that are right here in Senate District 6. So I hope that that is something that you take upon. I know that some schools are coming to the Capitol. They designate one day to visit the legislators, and that may be something that you might consider doing.
I think you already know my position on funding for charter schools. I am a strong supporter. I will support you. I will fight to get you more money so that you can prosper what you are doing. Here's the other thing. With reference to the state senate, right now we have a Republican majority. So if I go to the state senate, what I am going to do before I go there is have a plan. Have a plan that is made up of you folks, the leaders of the community, the leaders of the school. We will then draw plans, have meaningful discussions, and that's exactly what I'm going to take to the state senate and fight for. Thank you very much.
So I think we have time for one last question before we roll to our closing remarks. And this one's a very specific question. Public charter school students receive $0 in state and local funding for facilities. Repeat that, $0 for facilities. Their peers in traditional ISDs receive about $940 per student per year for this purpose. Would you support state funding for charter school facilities? Traditional students in ISDs receive $940 per student per year for charter schools receive $0. Would you support charter facility funding for charter schools?
Yes, I do. I would. Going back to what I said from the very beginning, that the state of public schools is in such disarray, such a shocking state, that we need to expand the options of parents, and we need to have, obviously, the facilities in which to do that. Thank you.
Currently, the administration and teacher ratio in public education is 1-to-1. So for every teacher, you have an administrator. Does that make any sense to parents? For every teacher in the state of Texas, there's an administrator. You have superintendents making more than the President of the United States. I can tell you how we can fund more charter schools. We can fund more charter schools by making sure that we are actually tapping into waste, fraud, and abuse on public education as it is right now. They don't want you to look into that because they just want you to keep feeding into it. What's the definition of insanity? Continue to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, and they're killing and failing our children. The reason why charter schools can grow, and the reason why how we can grow, is to make sure that we become fiscally responsible. Let's see if a superintendent is actually failing in his ISD. Let's get the money from him and put it toward the kids. Move it toward charter schools, where it's actually going to reap something of fruit and value to our community. I want to talk about the real deal, so I hope I'm not being too upfront. But you as parents, you already know, when we put the stick down, we put it down. So let's just deal with the issues.
I recognize the needs. I mean, we're sitting in a temporary shack, sitting in a temporary building, and I know that what takes place in here is tremendous. The results that we see from the kids, and I recognize that the infrastructure and the capital improvements that are needed, and I would be open to that. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, you have to then look at the whole funding structure and the formula. So it's something that I think we definitely need your participation at the table and having that discussion and making sure that there is a larger pool of money to take from, that there is the political will from the leadership in this state, because quite frankly, there just hasn't been. You know, last session, we could have gone and taken more money from the rainy day fund. We are one of the few states that can even claim to have a rainy day fund. Our rainy day fund is almost up to $11 billion. So there is money to take from, to have more money, to spread around to our schools, but the political will from the leadership in this state is not there.
I'm not going to give you too much lip service about the numbers, et cetera, et cetera. What I am going to say is that I'm a strong supporter, here again, of the charter school. You need buildings, you need other infrastructures in order to house all the students, and perhaps later on increase your school's capability.
those fundings for building facilities. Right now, again, you're working out of temporary buildings and are doing awesome things. Ripley House is working out of a community center. You have Yes Prep working out of T buildings as well. Imagine what you can do with the funding that you're getting. Imagine.
Thank you, candidates. So we are going to now transition to giving you 1.5 minutes to close us out for the evening and kind of make your overall statement and help us understand a little bit about you. And then I will, after that, close very quickly with a reminder to get out and vote and take someone with you to vote. But to kick us off, please, Mr. Bray.
Well, I thank you for your time, number one. You know, politicians and candidates are really good at ridiculous rhetoric and rhetoric resolutions. I mean, they'll talk for hours saying absolutely nothing. They'll say exactly what you want to hear, but give you no resolutions at all. And the ones that they do make no sense. We've actually sat here and listened today about individuals talk about tapping into the rainy day fund. What happens when Katrina hits Houston? What happens when Sandy hits us? What happens? New York asked for 60, and they got 10. Katrina victims were left with nothing, and who were the poorest? The poorest were left. I remember because I was actually, and still am, a guard in the United States Air Force, pulling bodies, and they were the poorest of us because they couldn't get out. States need money. We are the only state with a rainy day fund, and we should be clapping our hands about it because when something happens, when Katrina hits us, the poorest of us will have an opportunity to get out. Let's think about what we're doing before we say that's money, we should grab it. Sometimes money has strings attached to it. My grandfather told me, son, nothing is free. It comes with a cost. We have an opportunity to redefine how we educate our children. And I'm an advocate for doing that through charter schools and vouchers. If you had to take advantage of a voucher, it means that that individual is going to go in any school they want to. But that means that the schools that are performing well will get overcrowded. And when they get overcrowded, charter schools will be there to save the day. Then we'll have to get funded. Then we'll have to get the facilities needed. And we'll have to start combining. But thank you for your time. I hope I made sense.
Thank you to the parents that are here and to the administrators and teachers. You know, the rainy day fund was created for an emergency. And I'm sorry, I think that the needs for education is an emergency. And if we don't do something this coming session to restore those cuts, to put more money so that we can make sure that we pay our teachers what they deserve, and that we have early childhood development, that we have all-day pre-K, that we have the teacher merit pay that is intact, that we have schools that can build buildings that can be in an environment where our kids can learn, that we have the capital improvements and the infrastructure for our kids to sit comfortably in the classroom. I think education has got to be the #1 issue that drives the legislative session because we are talking about investing in our kids. And we rank very low when it comes to what we spend per pupil in the nation. I think we can do better. You know, our rainy day fund replenishes itself pretty quickly because the oil and gas business is doing well. So I think when we do have a surplus, that we ought to use that surplus to fund education. Thank you.
One of the reasons why I decided to run for state senator is because for years I have done a lot of analysis that has shown that many of us have been forgotten through the years. Not only Hispanics, but also African American, Asian Americans, and others. I also compiled 10 years worth of data, and it shows through the years we have reached 220,000 registered voters. But with the exception of the general election, we only have 7% of the registered voters going to vote. So what's wrong with that picture? The problems that we have today, ladies and gentlemen, with education didn't arise just yesterday or last month. They've been around for years. Why our representative state senators have not done anything about it is beyond me. But you do need a strong state senator that will represent you, and I will do that. Thank you very much.
So I'm the inexperienced politician, the one that, you know, this is not my time, I have not served in office, I have not paid my dues. But I want to tell you, this is not hard. This is not hard. As a community, we know what we want. We know what we want. I took a risk to challenge what I feel has been an establishment of what's been going on for the past 2 decades or more. I took a risk to say, you know what, I'm a voice for other community, and I'm going to go ahead and start speaking that voice. But at the same time, I'm going to challenge the community, which are my community members, to step up as well. It is not hard. Public service is not hard. You can have all the rhetoric, and you have everybody talking about this is important, but we all know what's important. We all know what's important, and we need to start stepping up. That's why I decided to run for state senate, because it's about time that we, as a community, start not only pushing our voice, but start taking what we deserve in Senate District 6. Thank you.
Not quite done yet. Thank you for staying till the very end. Okay, first of all, let me tell you that I am in the Green Party. Now, what does that mean in terms of education? We are for grassroots democracy and social justice. When people start talking about austerity, we need to balance the budget, the question is on whose back do you balance it? There was newspaper articles recently in the Chronicle that was talking about how Kerry brings jobs to Texas. He does so by giving tax breaks to big corporations. And they are so excessive that they were called corporate welfare. So they went above and beyond what they needed to give away. So when you're talking about balancing the budget, who's back? You don't do it on the back of education. We need to develop the social fabric, the very basis on which we build our democracy and our society. Education is where that starts. Thank you.
Thank you, parents, for, I know you have busy nights and you have homework to go overdue and children to take care of. Thank you for joining us this evening. As a final reminder, you can vote Saturday for one of the candidates in your home precinct from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., so you've got no excuse. My last request is that you grab someone with you to go along, because we all know that we know one other person that needs to get out and rock the boat, if not more. Thank you, candidate.